Okay, it is Monday the 13th of April and we're in lockdown at the moment in New Zealand for, well, years actually. I've been saving posts on Pinterest and on Facebook of things that I've wanted to try, and I never quite get around to doing it, and I'm kind of been running out of inspiration. So I thought, right, I'm going to make the effort to actually do some of the things that I've been saving that I've wanted to do. So the one that I'm going to start with today is, I did try one earlier and I actually learned a few lessons from it, which is why I'm videoing this so I can keep it for future reference. But it was making one of these using dies, leaf dies, and I've made a background for it so it'll go on like that. So I want to do another one now that I've learned a bit from doing the first one. So hopefully it might be a bit easier this time. So the first thing I've done actually is create a template. This is 3 1/4 inches by 3 1/4 inches. Then I've cut a piece of cardstock the size for an A6 card. So it is 10.5 centimetres by 14.9 centimetres. Now, I work in both centimetres and inches. So sorry, this one's in inches and this is in centimetres, but it's easy enough to work out with a ruler. So with this as my template, this I'm going to use to actually draw my square. So I'm going to place it on my card base about here and just get a pencil and draw a really, really faint, fine line. So hopefully you'll be able to see it. But I want to be able to rub it off or certainly not see it afterwards. So I'm just doing it really, really lightly. So I'm not sure if you can actually see the very fine pencil marks that I've put in there. I've then used these particular leaf dies from a Stampin' Up die set. This is the rest of them that I haven't used. It's called Foliage Framelits dies. And I'll just get my big shot because I'm going to need to put this into here. Right, now here comes the tricky part, or the bit that I found the tricky part. And one of the things I learnt is that you can't cut it with the dies on this side. They need to be on the further side so the paper's already gripped and doesn't move. So I'm going to line up my plates and pop my piece of card on here, and then the very, very faint line that I've drawn here, this is where I'm going to just move it over a little bit so I can see it better. Using that very faint line, I'm going to put my dies. These dies actually come as two of each of these leaves in different directions. So I've chosen the ones that I have, but I could swap them out if I wanted to change the direction. But I'm also placing my leaves so that the very, very fine stem, I'm actually using the bulk of the leaf on the line, because otherwise the stem will be so flimsy that I think it might actually be quite difficult to handle on the paper afterwards. So I'm using the base. So you'll see from this one, if I had used the very fine stem, it might have been very difficult to keep it holding onto the paper. So I lay it out roughly, well, where I want to cut it. And then using my cutting plate. Now, I think this would be easier with a die cutting machine that had a straight edge on here rather than a curved edge. This curved edge doesn't make it quite as neat. And the video I saw of somebody doing something similar to this, or where I got the idea from, her plate looked like it just went straight, so it would have been easier to section off exactly where it did or didn't cut. So I need to line this up in here so that this line of where it starts to go thin, it does actually cut a little bit there too. So I might need to get my face down here a little bit and line up that very faint line against the line on the dies. That's roughly about right. And then I'm going to run it through. So now when I lift these dies off, you'll see that it's only cut to where that line was on the plate. So now I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. So lay these out. Move that up a bit because, as you know, I want the plate, I want it to be fairly straight actually. I can line it up against the edge of that plate. And then put this plate down about there and run that through. Don't worry about the big clicking noise, it's just as it runs over the edge of the plate. That's perfectly okay and normal. So if I now take these off, just pop them to one side, you'll see now that I've got these leaves all cut out. Okay, we'll just pop them up, and then I'm going to put this back on the floor. And get my cutting mat, because now I need to use my cutting blade. So using the fine lines that I already have on here, I'm going to cut this out. Now, I could have done with a sharper blade, a newer blade, but we're in lockdown and I couldn't go and get any. Now, it might not be exactly where you've drawn the line, but it's where the marks are, where you can see where it's cut. So I might need to get my head in for this. Take my glasses off. I could really do with a much sharper blade. I might have to see if I've got something better. I am having to move it away a little bit because it's hard to tell what is branch and what is bit that I need to cut away. So obviously you don't want to cut the wrong bit. Really could do with a sharper blade. So hopefully now you can see, oh, so there, I've actually cut that one through. Oh, you can see I've actually made a mistake there and cut it wrong. I'm just going to see actually, and I've cut that one wrong too. Done this whole thing wrong. Need to do the whole thing again. Let's see if I can do the other side better, and at least it shows it anyway, demonstrates it. So, in fact, actually, it might be easier for me to draw the line a bit darker of where I want to cut. So then hopefully make it just a bit easier rather than keep moving the ruler. Okay, so hopefully this now will show it a bit better. See, if I had a sharper blade, I'd have done a better job of getting into these corners, especially these bits in here. I guess you could always use a good sharp pair of scissors. To just snip these bits. That looks through there now, and just snip these bits. And then that one has come away pretty nicely. Well, so you can see, oh well, that was where I'd cut through anyway, but and then it's a bit easier just to do the straight lines. Excuse my head again. And then the other side. Oops. Righty ho, let's have a look how that is looking. So if I pop this out of here, just get those snips in there. Just a little bit of stubborn bit there that just needed a bit of a snip. Here we go. Just in this corner here. So you can see this other side has worked much better than the side that I completely got wrong, but never mind. I could maybe rescue it by actually, when I put this onto a card base, so for example, if I take the one that I did earlier, if I use this as my base for underneath, I could always glue these bits on, save me having to redo it again. I think that's what I might do. And that goes on there. I'll just get this other little bit out here. And that goes on there. So, so the things I learnt was about the when you're putting it in the die cutting machine, to put it on the furthest end so that your paper's well held in there while you're trying to cut it. And if you've got a big shot like me and the plates are angled, when they're angled they do still cut. It's only the very little bit at the end that it doesn't, so it's not really easy to line up exactly to your lines. So you can see I've still got a little bit of pencil showing, and I'm just going to go in with a rubber later and rub that out. So I hope that all inspires you to give it a try. Speak to you later. Bye.